I have a sister who's a complete Karen. We've never gotten along, and she always wants to gloat about how she's married to some rich guy and she doesn't have to work, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's before I met a man, and I can't wait to tell her all about him.
Hello, everyone. You can call me Alice. I've got some family drama to share with you all, and I would appreciate any advice or supportive comments I can get from all of you out there. There's a lot of background information I need to share with you, so this is going to be a long post. Let me tell you about my nasty older sister, Vicky. To put it bluntly, Vicky has always been spoiled, rude, and inept. You can't spell Vicky without icky. She could never handle that I was the younger sibling, and it drove her crazy that I was hardworking and smart, making great grades in school, while she was always off, wasting time, doing nothing. Usually just mooching off my elderly parents rather than getting a job like I did. Before our parents passed away, they always told me I was destined for greatness. Whether it was a great career or something, they gave me support, but I'll admit it. It always bothered me that they cut Vicky so much slack while demanding and expecting so much perfection from me. The double standard always just created a horrible wedge between me and Vicky, which has made our relationship a tad bit sour and rocky ever since we were little girls. As an example, the day I turned 15 years of age, my parents took me out for the day for my birthday party to go apply for jobs at a fast food restaurant and supermarkets. I was already dealing with a lot of stress from school and extracurricular activities, but my parents always wanted to put more and more on my plate. Meanwhile, my sister Vicky was 17 at the time, still getting an allowance from my parents, even though I was the one who did all the household chores. They never expected her to lift a finger, and if they even dared suggest that she get off her butt and do something productive and useful, she would start pitching a fit and crying until they gave her some money to go shopping. These type of things, as much as I love both of our parents so much, are events that left trauma and resentment in our lives. I could go on and on for hours and hours about all the selfish and rude behavior Vicky has exhibited over the years, but that would take volumes to fill up. I must say, on top of how she was when we were kids, and she has not grown up much at all, Vicky has always been especially rude towards me. I've always tried my best to remain civil and respectful towards her. Sure, we've had our spats as sisters often do as kids, but in adulthood, I've always tried to treat her as a family member, in spite of the fact that she's never truly felt like family to me. As cold as that may sound to some, she's always made unkind and hurtful remarks about my weight, my fashion sense, my appearance, my intelligence, even though I'm much smarter than she is. And even my career. Well, you see, while my parents forced me to work jobs on top of school and go through college on my own without much help at all, my parents allowed Vicky to sit around the house until her early 20s. I was just graduating college and starting a career as a law clerk, making a low salary when I got the news that Vicky was marrying a well-off man named Tyson, who was almost 40, who came from a wealthy family. While I tried to show happiness for my sister getting married, I was secretly resentful. Vicky made comments about how I had not found a husband yet, and she rubbed it in my face that her husband was rich and was going to take care of her for the rest of her life. I was jealous, I must admit. Once again, Vicky was getting a free ride, and my parents passed away, and Vicky went straight from their house to Tyson's even bigger mansion. It looked like a mansion, at least, next to the apartment I was living in at the time. Meanwhile, throughout all of this, I continued to work on myself and work on my career. I had to keep Vicky's nastiness out of my head just to keep from getting bogged down by the resentment and frustration, because it always felt so unfair that I was expected to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders, while little Miss Spoiled Princess Icky Vicky was allowed to just float through life without ever doing anything just to help out anybody except herself. Well, throughout the years, as we've gotten older, I've mainly seen Vicky and Tyson at family functions, like holiday events. While I'm always cordial and respectful as I can be, Vicky never fails to make rude comments towards me, and nobody ever has the guts to stand up for me or defend me. Tyson has always been rude toward me as well. He comes from a wealthy family and has a great job, so he's always looked at me like some sort of low-class cretin. Even though I have a degree from a great school, I make decent money, but I don't have nearly as much as his family does. Vicky makes zero money. Absolutely nothing. But Tyson gives her everything she asks for, or should I say demands. Designer clothing, designer jewelry, the fanciest cell phones on the market, and gadgets. Meanwhile, I have to work my butt off for everything I have. I did not have the nicest car, nicest cell phone, nicest anything, but I kept working hard and making it happen for me. Fast forward to the present day, I have to tell you about the wonderful man I just married, Greg. Not to sound corny or cliche, but Greg is the true man of my dreams. Handsome, kind, compassionate, and while this does not matter to me in the least sense, I'm not superficial, but he's rich, on top of everything that else is great about him. We fell in love almost at first sight, and he makes me happier than anything and anyone else on the planet. Like I said before, I don't keep in contact much with Vicky or Tyson. I share small details about my life when I'm forced to interact with them. Of course, Vicky heard through the gossip grapevine that I was getting married to a man named Greg. She called me up on the phone a few times, prying information, desperate to set up a meeting where we could all meet each other. She kept suggesting a double date between Greg, Vicky, and Tyson at the most expensive restaurant in the city, a place I would normally never eat at. Which is why I think Vicky kept suggesting it. Of course, I'd already told Greg about how I and Vicky had always had a rough relationship and a lot of problems with each other, and I was hesitant to arrange a meeting because I did not want Vicky to belittle me in front of Greg, or worse, belittle Greg in front of me. She had already made comments during our phone call, asking if Greg works at a poor people job like I do. I had to bite my tongue to keep the peace, but frankly, I've been getting sick and tired of doing that again and again in my life. Greg kept reassuring me that we should just get the meeting over with if it was so important to Vicky, and he kept telling me that everything would be fine. He said that if anything got out of hand, he would just come up with an excuse for why his work required us to leave. Greg truly did everything he could to try to assuage my anxiety about the whole situation at hand. And while I appreciate the effort, I still had a bad feeling about the restaurant meeting. Despite the feeling I had in my gut about allowing Vicky an up-close and personal glimpse of my personal life, I decided to reluctantly agree to a restaurant meeting. Between us, the next time Vicky called me on the phone, pestering me about it. Now, before I tell you what all transpired at the restaurant meeting, I should tell you Greg and Tyson knew nothing about each other except each other's first name, right? Neither of them knew which Greg or which Tyson would be there. Even Vicky had never seen what Greg looked like. I'd made sure of this just to prevent her from making rude comments about his look, so before I go on, I should tell you that, you and Vicky were quite surprised by what went down at the meeting. We pulled up to the restaurant. The place was packed. It was the fanciest restaurant in the city on a Friday night. Me and Greg had chosen the finest clothings for the occasion. I had insisted upon it since I knew Vicky and Tyson would be trying to outdo our fashion sense. I did not want to give Vicky any reason to make a rude comment towards me. So, we went into the restaurant and we had arrived before Vicky and Tyson. Figures, since Vicky is always late and does not respect anybody else's time except for her own. Anyways, when Vicky and Tyson finally walked into the restaurant and asked to be seated at our table, I could see Tyson and Greg's eyes suddenly get wide as they realized who they were both looking at. I heard Tyson exclaim, "Good to see you, sir. I'm almost done with those reports you wanted." Me and Vicky both said, "What?" right at the same time. We were clearly both very confused, and Greg and Tyson started chit-chatting. It became clear that Greg was Tyson's boss at work, and I was flabbergasted. I knew that Greg was rich, and that was a fact. I had not yet disclosed to Vicky, but now it was very, very clear. Tyson is rich enough on his own, but if Greg is Tyson's boss, it's obvious Greg is much, much, much more rich. I know I should not care about money, but I got a slight sense of satisfaction, knowing that my man was not only earning more money than Vicky's man, but also knowing that Vicky's man was working underneath my man. Vicky could not handle this at all. The look on her face was horror, and it was amazing. You all should have been there to see it, and she ran out of the restaurant crying, and Tyson excused himself to go console her, but they never came back. Now I'm back home, and I must admit, me and Greg could not stop laughing. Not laugh at all about what happened. Still, I can't help but feel like Vicky's going to try to find some way to retaliate. She hates being humiliated, and I know she's not going to let this slide without a fight. Update number 1. Hello, beautiful people out there. OP here for yet another update, and I wish I did not even have to update. But unfortunately, I don't think this drama with my sister Vicky is over. Thanks to everybody who left kind and supportive advice and words of encouragement. I'm glad other people understand the type of person I'm dealing with when I discuss my sister's twisted behavior. Anyways, after Vicky ran out of the fancy restaurant crying over the fact that my husband Greg was her husband Tyson's boss, me and Greg laughed about the incident and almost all but forgot about it as we proceeded with our lives for a few days. We got some radio silence for a bit, but then the craziness begun. Suddenly, people whom I have not spoken to in ages, and in some cases some of these people being almost strangers to me, beyond passing acquaintanceship at some time ago, began coming out of the woodwork, absolutely, hitting me up for favors, money, you name it. People were asking me for business loans, help with rent, help with car payments, I mean everything. People were getting my cell phone number who should not even have it. And people who have never been contacting me on Facebook were suddenly tracking me down and asking me for all sorts of things. I kept asking people how they kept getting my number and contact information. Admittedly, I had a good feeling in my gut that I knew the culprit, and sure enough, I was correct. Somebody on social media told me that Vicky was sitting around at the local bars talking about how my rich husband Greg was spoiling me. She was also making posts on her own social medias about how greedy I am. I'm not surprised by Vicky's behavior, to be honest, but this is bordering harassment. I'm hoping this junk stops soon, but I have a feeling it will not. Update number 2. OP here, back again for another update. Thanks again to those of you who have been reading and leaving all your kind support and comments. I truly appreciate it. I wish I could say things have blown over regarding the situation between me and Vicky, but unfortunately, I believe things are only going to continue spiraling out of control. In my last update, I detailed the slew of phone calls and social media requests from people all over town, coming out of the woodwork to ask me for monetary favors. The request did not stop even after I posted something at the top of my Facebook profile, warning people not to ask me for money. I was livid that Vicky would put my business out there for our entire small town to gossip over. It's a small rural area where almost all people are quite poor. Of course, people were going to start prying once Vicky ran her mouth about me to, everybody. The irony is, all these people should be asking Vicky for money. She's the one who gets money without having to work for it. If she blows her money, Tyson will just reach into Tyson pockets and give it to her. Finally, after a few days of dealing with all this junk and praying that eventually all this insistent social media and cell phone contact would just cease, I decided that enough was indeed enough. I called Vicky on the phone myself, which is something I never do. I was angry, and I let her know it. I was surprised the coward even answered the phone. She answered and took a smarty attitude right away, so I dropped all the pretense of civility. I told Vicky in no uncertain terms that if this insistent contacting did not cease to desist, that if she did not stop gossiping about me to the townsfolk, there were going to be some serious problems. Well, instead of talking this seriously and just respecting my wishes and boundaries like a decent human being would do, Vicky simply gets louder than I am and got an even worse attitude over the phone. She started calling me greedy, spoiled, and all sorts of other foul names that I cannot repeat here. Before she hung up the phone, she vowed to get revenge on me, once and for all. I've got a bad feeling about this situation at hand, guys. I'm just hoping things get better soon. Update number 3. Hello guys, I'm back for yet another update, and my predictions were yet again correct. I know my sister Vicky very well. Something horrible has happened, and I know Vicky and Tyson must be behind it somehow. Let me cut right to the chase because I'm absolutely furious about this and I'm at a loss for what to do. I would appreciate any advice you guys out there are willing to give me, because I want to put a stop to this before things get even worse. Greg came home from work early today, looking as if he had just witnessed a ghost or a horrible accident. I immediately sensed that something was wrong and asked him what was up. He then dropped a bombshell on me, which shocked me. He told me that the corporate managers for his company had suspended him after he had done a horrible job at a presentation. He swore to me that he had his documents in order the night before when he left them in his office, and he did not check them when he went to give a presentation at work. The documents have been sabotaged. Greg's work had been altered and destroyed, and Greg was humiliated in front of everybody at work. And the corporate managers decided to suspend him while they made a decision on whether or not to fire him. Me and Greg immediately agreed that we suspected Vicky and Tyson were somehow behind this. Greg told me how he had seen Tyson hanging out around his office quite a bit at work lately, almost as if Tyson was spying on him. But in interactions, Tyson remained civil and friendly. It's clear to me he's a snake and a manipulator just like Vicky. We just know Tyson was the one who went into Greg's office and sabotaged his work. But we just don't have the proof right now. I suspect Vicky, who was the one that put him up to it. I bet she's been filling his ear up with all sorts of lies and distortions about how awful me and Greg are. She's a manipulative person to her core. What we're going to do to get out of this mess is, I don't know. If the corporate review board finds Greg to be unfit for his position due to the severity of his blunder at work, he will be fired. And we will be on the streets. This is exactly what Vicky wants. Update number 4. Hey guys, OP here for another update, and I know I've left you all hanging last time. And many of you have been asking me for an update, and I've been so preoccupied with all this drama with Vicky and Tyson. I've been distracted, but I wanted to drop by and fill you both in on the bombshell that we uncovered today. This is huge. So, many of you were suggesting hiring a private investigator to take a look at Greg's workplace premises, interview some people, and so on. It seemed like a great idea. While me and Greg considered doing espionage in the workplace ourselves, it seemed a bit too risky. If Greg is even spotted on the workplace premises during his suspension, he could be instantly terminated even before his corporate review hearing is scheduled. So, we both decided to take our advice and be safer than sorry. We decided to hire the best private investigator in my small town. I've changed his name to avoid identifying us because he's quite well known around town. His name is Pinky Finister. We hired him and went down to his office in town and explained this terrible situation that we're dealing with. Pinky was understanding and reassuring that he would be able to dig up some dirt on either Tyson or Vicky and hopefully be able to uncover the proof that we needed that confirmed Greg's innocence at work. Sure enough, Pinky Finister was able to visit Greg's workplace. Pinky Finister is well known, so people knew that he had to be investigated something serious when he showed up at work, but nobody knew he was actually there trying to help my husband. He was granted permission to take home hours of camera footage to review. He reviewed all the camera footage leading up to the day Greg was suspended, and he was able to uncover the smoking gun that proved that we were right about everything all along. There it was, right there on camera, plain as day for all to see. Tyson sneaking into Greg's office during his lunch break and sabotaging documents and computer files in my husband's office. Despite all of this, I'm still nervous. Please leave me kind words of encouragement, because my husband's review is tomorrow, and Peaky Finister will be tagging along with us. Update number 5. Hey guys, so a lot of you were asking about what finally happened regarding my husband's work review. This will be my final update, as I can finally say I think this situation and all the horrible drama that went along with it is finally resolved. As we pulled up in the parking lot of Greg's workplace, I could tell me and Greg were nervous, but old Pinky Finister assured us that we would be fine. We all went to the review board room to support my husband, and that's when Pinky revealed the footage for all the corporate managers to see for themselves. They were shocked and appalled, just as we have been, by what they saw on camera. Tyson, somebody they'd previously thought of as a good and valuable employee, went into Greg's office to sabotage documents and mess with his computer files like a complete rat. Greg's corporate managers all apologized profusely to him for not believing him sooner. They instantly reinstated him back into his old position, no questions asked, and that's when the most satisfying thing happened. The CEO of the company was present at the meeting and called Tyson into the office. They asked him to explain himself, and he denied the accusations and immediately began trying to lie his way out of the situation. That's when we all showed him the footage, and he did not even muster a word. He knew that he's been caught red-handed. He was fired and escorted from the building. Me and Greg thanked Pinky Finister for all that he has done to help us, and we went back home happy with the knowledge that this situation was over. I was especially relieved that Tyson would not be at Greg's workplace any longer. I know their relationship was friendly at first, but Tyson's behavior proved that Vicky's manipulation was enough to get him to commit even a seriously horrible action such as this. I got a call from Vicky that evening where she cried and swore at me, but I just told her that she needed to learn a lesson. If she kept trying to mess with me and my husband, we were always going to win. Vicky did not say a word. She was silent for once in her life and simply hung up the phone, and I got word soon after the phone call that Vicky and Tyson were selling their home and moving to another city. You see, Tyson's reputation was ruined after word got around that he's been sabotaging my husband at work. I'm glad this situation turned out in my favor. I truly could not have done it without the help of all you people out there. You all left kind and constructive comments and great advice, so thanks again. And also, thanks for reading.
Tyson and Vicky really got what they deserved. I mean, they had to move away, a whole new town. Tyson got fired because, well, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed and decides to go to a place that has cameras everywhere, sneak into his boss's office, which is OP's significant other, and tries to mess up a few documents to get OP's significant other in trouble at work. And as we know, it backfired pretty horribly. So that's why I'm coming to you guys to ask, what do you think of Tyson and Vicky? And how would you have handled how ridiculous she was acting? Let me know your thoughts. Drop it down below in our comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every single day. If you guys want to be a part of these daily stories, it's really simple. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, drop a comment down below, and smash that like button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stop on by, see what story we're doing, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya. Peace.